it's no more blizzard. There's still snow, but now it's like pretty snow, and we can play in it, and it's sunshine, and it's quite lovely. But thank you for surviving the Broadway blizzard craziness yesterday. I had fun. Did you guys have fun? After the initial shock of, we may all die here together, I had fun. So thank you guys for bearing with us and playing with us. So we're at our final day, and it's kind of sad to go, but we wanted to leave on a couple of high notes. This is definitely one for me. There's a new musical that's coming into town very soon called Waitress. It did try out at ART, Cambridge, starring Jessie Mueller. It was amazing, as you all know. I'm sure you all have seen her in a bunch of different shows. Anyway, the reviews were phenomenal, and it's one of the highlights of the spring season. And I'm so excited to have the all-female creative team from Waitress here with us today. So please welcome Diane Paulus, Jessie Nelson, and Sara Bareilles. Hi, ladies. Hey. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for being with us today. It's been a fun weekend. I wanted to start with you, Diane, and explain a little bit about ART and your work there, because this, I think, is the 4th or 5th show to come to Broadway, and you've had Hair, Porgy and Bess, Once. It's just a phenomenal theater. Pippin, yeah. So could you just explain a little bit about your work at ART?
Sure. So great to be here, and we were so excited by everybody screaming. We were standing back there. So ART, for people who don't know, is the American Repertory Theater. It's in Cambridge, part of Harvard University. I love that that you guys know ART. That's awesome. And actually our mission there is to expand the boundaries of theater. And we do that by looking at classic plays and new plays. And since I've been there, we've just put musical theater into that equation, just because I believe in American musical theater as one of the most incredible art forms that we have here, that we've originated in this country. And I look at ART as this opportunity to take great artists today to look at classic musicals and bring them into the 21st century. And in the case of Waitress, to bring people who may have not been playing in our playground and invite them to make a major contribution to the form. And it's just an incredible place for us to incubate and give artists a safe zone to begin their work. And then what's better than anything is when we get a chance to continue the work and bring it to Broadway. So yes, we've transferred a lot of shows, but really the idea is to create something at ART for our audiences there, and then when it goes well, bring it to Broadway for all of you and for audiences across the country that get to see it. And it always becomes about more process. That's what I always say. You know, you think Broadway, everybody thinks commercial and money, but inside it, for artists, going to Broadway is an incredible opportunity for more process. And that's what I love about it.
Well, it's been an incredibly fertile ground for someone who doesn't live in Boston but goes there frequently. It's definitely been a blessing to have that theater and to have the shows that come out of it, and especially the ones that get to come to Broadway and have some life after that. It's been amazing. So we're in awe of that theater. Speaking of maybe bringing people outside of the theater, coming into the theater, Sara, you, besides being now a Broadway composer, you of course have quite a fan base as a singer-songwriter and a performer yourself, of course. Tell me how you got involved.
I got a phone. I'm actually really curious to hear the other side of it because I only know my experience with how I got involved. So I'm not sure where my name came from initially, actually. So this will be a nice time for me to learn alongside you. But I got a phone call from my theatrical agent. I had recently moved to New York and knew that I wanted to get involved in the theater community. I grew up on musical theater. I've always loved it, and I sort of had always imagined myself as someone who would be a musical theater performer. So when I got to New York, I was like, I want to audition for things. And I did it miserably. And there's a side story after that. But I got a phone call from my agent saying that there was this project that was in the works and a director that wanted to sit down with me. And Diane and I went to lunch in Times Square, and she told me about Waitress, which was a film I hadn't seen at the time. And you were so incredibly inviting and open-minded, and basically just offered this really interesting invitation to explore if this was going to be a good fit. And I sort of remember saying to you, let's just make a pact that if this doesn't go well, we can shake hands and be cool about it. I'll give it a shot. I'm interested to see if I connect to the material. And I went home and watched the movie and sort of fell in love with the idea that there was more to deepen there and more to explore. I loved the world that Adrian Shelley had built, and I thought that it would be actually really beautifully musicalized. And so I said yes, I had no idea what I was saying yes to, let me tell you what. 3 years later, this shit is hard, okay? That's what I have to say about it.
So Diane, will you spill the beans? What was it about Sara's music that you were like, she should also be a composer and lyricist for Broadway?
Well, we were looking at Waitress and thinking about, should this be adapted into the musical theater form, right? A lot of movies are being adapted, and when I finally watched the film, which I had also not seen it when it came out originally, so I watched it and I thought, this has a heartbeat as a musical. The emotions of it, the fantasy, the characters, there's stories to tell musically. But what I loved about that film was the independent flavor of it. It was like an indie movie. It was kind of off the beaten path and quirky, and the tone was unusual. It was really heartfelt, but really kind of irreverent. And the whole premise is that this woman gets pregnant and she doesn't want her baby, and how could you not want your baby? That's supposed to be like the greatest moment of your life, but this idea that she's kind of conflicted, and it just dealt with tricky territory in this really unique way. So I had one immediate thought was that we should find someone who's not necessarily from the musical theater, but someone from outside who could capture that tone. And so we made a list.
Oh.
And
Adele couldn't do it.
Adele was not on that list. But Sara Bareilles was top of that list. And then you get these moments, you're like, let's make a dream list. And well, can we ever meet her? Could this ever happen? And luckily, you were thinking about theater. So this lunch happened, and just for those of you who know or have heard the concept album or saw the show at ART, after that lunch,
It's an unbelievable album, by the way.
yeah, incredible.
Don't listen to it on the subway. You will be crying.
After that lunch, I had said to Sara, just go watch the film, see how you react, and just start to write. We don't have a treatment yet, we don't have an adaptation, but just write from your heart, whatever strikes you. And then lo and behold, a couple weeks later, not even 2-3 weeks at the most, yes, I'm really sure, this MP3 pops in my email inbox. And it's titled, I don't know why I want to cry when I think about it, but it was like, She Used to Be Mine. I'm getting so emotional, this is silly. But, I mean, if you've heard that song, you know how incredible it is. And I remember listening, it's that moment when you start a show, you're like, is this gonna work? And I listened to that song and I read your lyrics. I was like, she's got it. She gets it. And then off to the races.
Thank you.
It's unbelievable.
It's really beautiful.
I would also love to see some wish lists, just as a fan. Can you imagine seeing wish lists of musicals or like people like Diane just coming up together? Like, this would make a good musical with these people attached to it, and this person starring it, just like musical theater dreams. That would be interesting to see. Next year, Jessie, you have an incredible background in films. You wrote Karina, you wrote I Am Sam. This obviously is coming from both incredibly touching films. This is a very touching, funny, witty film. Talk about the adaptation of Adrienne Shelly's story and bringing in and working with Diane and working with Sara to tell the story.
Well, they had actually been working together for a while before I came aboard. They had even done a workshop of the piece before I came aboard, and my agent called me and said they're doing Waitress as a musical. Is it something you'd be interested in? And my daughter, when she was a little girl, had showed me the movie and fallen, deeply in love with it and watched it at every slumber party. So I had seen it like 15 times and kind of knew it backwards and forwards. So I was immediately intrigued, and then they sent me Sara's music. And I knew Diane's work really intimately, again through my daughter, because I had taken her to see Hair when she was a little girl, and I was so blown away by the direction. So the idea that Sara and Diane were involved was, kind of a dream come true for me. And Sara's music, I had the same reaction that Diane did. It was just so undeniably beautiful and powerful that I immediately wanted to get involved, and I heard they were meeting another playwright at the time. So I remember thinking, well, I think this is meant to be, but I'm sure that other playwright thinks that too. And I met with Diane and Sara, and I felt an immediate connection to both of them and began working. And the challenge for us, sort of, along the way, is the medium of film is just so different than theater. In film, you have the cut to, and you have the close-up, and you have a whole language that isn't in theater. And so it's how to take such a beautiful movie and turn it into a musical. Interestingly enough, out of nowhere, years ago, I got a call from Adrienne Shelly's husband, who was trying to keep her work alive by going to different women directors and trying to have them direct other scripts of hers after she had passed. So I had met Andy and Sophie and all that in another context years ago. So it was really interesting when this came back in. But obviously it's just so delicate when someone has created such a beautiful film and then also that they've passed away. And so you feel, doubly inside your heart, you want to honor them at such a deep level and kind of keep their legacy moving forward. So that was a big part of it for me.
Can you talk a little bit about the creative process between you ladies and where the music picks up, where the words pick up in terms of just telling the story, how you guys have gone back and forth? I imagine there's been different types of, well, that would be better in a song, that would be better in word. Can you guys talk a little bit about that?
I just am remembering kind of the very beginning of this entire process. It literally was us sitting with the screenplay, watching the film, and having discussions along the way of just either there was some really sweet line that to me sparked the idea of, oh, there's an opportunity to extrapolate something more out of that, or a moment that needed more exploration, I suppose. And it was very collaborative from the beginning. And then sometimes when Jessie writes something really incredible, I steal it and I put it in a song. Sorry about that.
Well, you're used to just telling stories, like you having your 3.5 to 5 minutes or however long to tell that story, and now you have to work it into a larger narrative. So it's fascinating to see how you two would be able to work together, and stealing included.
It's healthy stealing.
Yeah, it's interesting the difference between film and